All right. So, I mean, the big thing on Wednesday is always kind of the injury report, right? Looks like we're going to get Tyler Guidry back potentially in a limited role. We're going to kind of ease him back into it a little bit. But obviously that's a shot in the arm to get him back. Caleb Anderson is getting really close here. We're going to try to cut him loose a little bit tomorrow and see where we're at. And hopefully, we'll get him back in the mix, and that'll be a good thing for sure. Pierce Meagle is back. He will be playing this week. That's a really good thing for us, a veteran guy who's played as much as he has. So, when you start getting those guys back, it's a really good thing because you've had young guys or new players that have had to step up. So your depth is kind of created, and you gotta continue to work that way. And at the end of the year, talk about it all the time. I mean, nobody feels great right now. Nobody feels real good. It's that time of year. You just got to keep pushing, and hopefully, like I said, those guys will be back. KC looks like he's on track for this week. Caleb Edwards is back. I know he ended up we had to scratch him at the game. We feel like we're in a little better shape today than we were last Saturday, and that's certainly a good thing, for this last stretch that we've got here, against some really good conference opponents.
So no Agu again?
No, he's still not going to be ready.
How did Glenn and I see that Lorenzo's on here on the depth chart?
So Lorenzo was ill last week at the end of the week, so he didn't make the trip, which certainly last week was an issue. But Glenn stepped in and played well. Kind of gave one of them up that shouldn't have, but that's part of playing that position. I mean, it's going to happen. So, Zell is back. He's had a good week of practice as well, so he'll be available too.
So they've always been good at wide receiver. It seemed like going down over a decade. So I'm sure they're good. Like how are they? Like y'all just played two really good receivers. Like what kind of receivers does Arkansas State?
These guys are kind of like tweeners. Like they kind of do everything a little bit. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like they're all listed at 6 foot. They're 190 pounds. They're kind of like they're not the big tall X's that they've had in the past, but they're not kind of like the two guys last week that were real shifty. They do everything a little bit. They do stretch the field with them. They throw a lot of balls over the top, but they're good with the ball in hand. They got like play strength a little bit more maybe than some of the smaller guys do. So they have make you miss. It's just a little bit different, if that makes any sense. So they've always got good receivers, and this year is no different. It's they've got a couple of tight ends in there that they use in the pass game as well. So I mean they're. They've always got some skill guys there and always have receivers, and this year it's no different. They're a little different the way they're built maybe. In the past they'd have two giants on the outside and they had some little scat guys on the inside. They're all kind of the same, but they're all good at they're all good at kind of everything. They're kind of jacks of all trades a little bit.
Now, the freshman you talked a little bit about Monday, does he run pretty quick? Or in other words, y'all gave up some yards and y'all were able to get some sacks and fumbles, but how easy is it going to be to sack him in terms of how long does he hold the ball to?
I mean, I would say I think he's a passer first. Like it's not 1, 2, 3 run. He progresses and he plays it. I mean, he holds when they drop back. I mean, he does hold it long enough to get a sack, but if you're out of the lane, you got a problem. If you don't have lane integrity, he is an issue. I mean, I don't think he's looking to run. It doesn't look like it. It looks like he's progressing and he's playing the position. He's not, use the term all the time, he's not an athlete playing quarterback. He's a quarterback that's an athlete. And so, that's a challenge, right? Because he'll progress it and beat you with his arm. And if you try to heat it up, you better have some lane integrity because, he does get out of it pretty good.
How important is this game just to really establish the run and kind of beat them up a little bit? I mean, with your offensive line, and it seemed like they've given up some rushing yards looking at their statistics. I mean, it seemed like it's always important, but it might really be important.
Yeah, I think it certainly can be because I do think the way their offense is playing now that they're scoring points. I mean, we're not like a shootout team. That's just kind of not really that's not who we want to be either. Like where it's throw it every down, back and forth on offense and defense. That's not really the game that we want to play. So, I mean, for us, it's always important. I think this week it's really important to establish it. Last year we went back, and kind of you always kind of reevaluate last year. We had 23rd and 4th downs last year in the game, which is a ton. Now, we had 90 plays, but that's a ton of third downs. We were really efficient on third down. It's not going to be like that every night. You're not going to be 50% every night on third downs, and usually you're not going to be 50%. So, I think third down avoidance is really critical, and that means you got to be efficient, obviously, on first and second down. So, we need to run the ball well. I do think they do some things that really make you maybe not want to run it a little bit. They're going to play the safeties low at times, and they fit. Those guys fit fast. They're Sam, their star. He's really more of a linebacker. He pulls a trigger and gets in there, and we're not a huge RPO team. That's kind of we're not really. It's not really kind of what we are. So, you're going to have to cover them up, knock them back up front, and some of the yards. Kind of talked about Old Dominion-ish a little bit. Like it might be dirty yards, right? Like it might be like the tight zone runs and some of those things. There's going to be someone fall in the box. It needs to be 4, 5, 6. It can't be 2, because you get knocked back and you bounce. They're going to drop you. You got to have a clean lane where when the secondary fitters come in, you're going forward. So I think all those things are important. Hopefully we can get our backs loose. I think the games that we've gotten some explosive runs, that's when we've played really well. So it's always important for us. I think it helps you on defense when you're running the ball a little bit. Even sometimes, running the ball, even when it's maybe not a touchdown, but like a 3-play, 4-play, 5-play touchdown sometimes, it doesn't really help your defense a whole lot. They get off the field after a long drive and all of a sudden there's points on the board. So sometimes just running it, being able to flip the field and eat clock, obviously you always want to score it, but sometimes there's value in that as well.
So do you feel better in the secondary than you did an hour before game time Saturday?
Yeah.
Where you are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is what it is. It's not that you don't think you have guys that are talented. I've spoken about that quite a bit, and I think the beginning of the year was the same way, right? Like I said from the spring, I felt like we had a chance to have a really good team, but there's a lot of things that have to happen for that to happen, and we're still working on being a good team. We had guys that we knew were capable of playing well, but a lot of them just hadn't had that much of a role or hadn't really had to do it. So, confidence comes from seeing a little bit sometimes, right, and actually doing it. And so those guys have practiced well. They prepared the right way, and you knew that stuff was all good, that they knew what to do. But it's still different, doing it. Nothing replaces game experience. That's why veteran teams are hard to beat, because they've been in the fire. They've been through so many different games. They've been through so many different scenarios and situations that, they're hard to beat because they've experienced a lot of things. So nothing replaces that. But, for those guys, there's a lot of confidence after playing last week and playing well, going into the next one.
After the last few years, every time I've watched them, it's like, if you could just run the ball a little bit, I think this team would be better. So is that what they're doing that's got them 4 wins when they struggled to get to there the last, or what's the difference? Like, what are they doing actually better?
Yeah, I do think they are running the ball a lot better. I don't think they are. And like I said, it's not that they're running the quarterback all the time, but he does get explosive runs. Sometimes in the pass game with a scramble, but he can pull the ball in zone reads. That's always something that you have to account for. And the thing with option football, whenever you can do those things, is if you hesitate for a second, now you get one crease and the ball's through there. It's the same thing that helps us. Whenever you have the threat of the quarterback run, whether you're running him or not, it helps. It puts stress on the defense. So I think their ability to run the ball has definitely made them a lot better. They're playing more like even 12 personnel sets where you go back a couple years ago and that's just not what they were at all. Right. And yeah, they are running the ball effectively. They're much better on the offensive line. They've recruited some good tight ends that protect the edge, that do a good job there. And they're playing. They're hitting balls. They're hitting throws on RPOs and things like that too because they're running it better. It opens up the throw game. So yeah, I do. I think they're more balanced than they've been in a long time. having played them for a long time. I think they're more balanced than they've been in quite a while.
So besides that, don't overlook them and everything that we've already talked about, like what's the main message in this matchup this week?
Well, shoot, first thing I'll say is if we're overlooking anybody, we're sadly mistaken. We're not that team. We win because when we win, it's because we're gritty and we're tough and we go out there and we play that way. So, that's the game we got to play to win every week. I think for us, you got to, not that you're going to duplicate what the defensive line did last week. All right. That doesn't happen every week. I hope so. We need really good front play on the defensive line. I do believe that if you can neutralize the run, slow it down where it's not hurting you, it's not turning into big ones, that does allow your secondary, your linebackers to react slower, right, to hang in those windows. It allows your secondary to stay back a little bit, not feel like they got to get in there so fast. I think that's a huge part of it. They do have good players on offense. I say it all the time. They're going to make some plays. They're going to do some things. This quarterback's going to have he's going to have some throws. He's going to have some runs. You just got to play the next play. It can't be back-to-back. It can't be, two explosives in a drive. Those kill you, when there's like two 15, 20-yard plays in one drive. It's hard to rebound from that. Okay, they got one. All right, we got to settle back in and go play and not get another one, because then you have a chance to stop them. So, I think it's going to be, for us, I think we have to play well up front on defense. We have to limit their explosives. And, we talked about the importance on offense of being able to run the football effectively. You always want explosives and all those things, but being able to run the football and being able to eat clock and being able to run it effectively where you don't feel like you're going to be behind, you're not going to be on schedule the whole time. It helps. It helps you call the game on offense. If you do get in the third downs, it makes them short and medium, which are way more manageable. It's just, it's team football. And I know, it's a broken record, but that's the way you win. That's our formula. It's tough team football. And when we play that for 4 quarters, I think we can beat anybody. When you don't do it consistently for 4 quarters, well, I know everybody on this schedule can beat us. I've seen it. So that's really, it's kind of like the things that you got to do every week. You got to run the ball. You got to stop the run. Got to play good on teams. And, your players have to show up and go out there and go compete at a high level. And that's what, we've been able to do a little bit lately, and, got to keep doing that.